Hi, in this video, I'm taking you through the writing section of the IELTS exam. You'll learn the structure of the writing test and what each task requires, and you'll see real examples from both task 1 and task 2. But more importantly, you'll see why these skills matter beyond IELTS, because you're not just studying for a test, you are preparing for life. IELTS writing test has two tasks, and you have 60 minutes to complete them both. Your overall writing score is a combination of your scores from task 1 and task 2, but here's the thing, they don't carry equal weight. Task 2 is more important. It's worth twice as much as task 1 because it's longer and takes more time to complete. This means that your task 1 score accounts for 1/3 of your total writing score, and your task 2 score makes up 2/3 of it. This is the reason why it's recommended that you spend 20 minutes doing task 1 and you dedicate 40 minutes for the second task. A separate video covers the scoring of the writing section where I go over the criteria and how the final score is calculated. Let's look at the tasks now. If you're taking IELTS Academic, your first task will be to interpret and describe information presented in a graphical form. So you're looking at visual data. You'll be given a graph or a chart, a table, a map, or a diagram, and your job is to analyze it and describe using minimum 150 words. If you're going for band 7 or above, you're aiming for 170 to 180 words. In case you're taking out general, you'll get a slightly easier task 1, and you need to write a letter based on a given situation. It can be formal, semi-formal, or informal, depending on who you're writing to. Same story here. If your goal is band 7 or above, you'll need more than the minimum word count. Task 2 is the same for both general and academic IELTS, and you're required to write an essay on a specific topic. The only difference is that in academic IELTS, the topics are more formal and often related to education, society, technology, or global issues, while general training topics are more about everyday life and work-related situations. Your essay must be at least 250 words. For band 7 and above, you're aiming for 280 to 290. You need to present your ideas clearly, develop strong arguments with examples, and use formal academic language. Once again, recommended timing is 40 minutes. Let's look at an example of academic writing task 1. The chart shows the number of men and women in further education in Britain in 3 periods and whether they were studying full-time or part-time. Now, pay attention to the instructions because they tell you exactly what you need to do. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. The key words here are summarize, select, main features, and compare. So now you might be thinking, what does academic task 1 actually test? Well, first, it tests your ability to identify key features in visual data. You are not expected to describe every single detail, but you must recognize the most important trends or patterns. It also tests how well you can compare and highlight significant differences, whether it's a graph, table or a chart, you need to analyze data and explain the relationships between different categories. If data shows changes over time, task one tests your skill in describing trends, whether something increases, decreases, fluctuates, or remains stable. You need to accurately explain how things change and develop over time. And finally, task one tests your ability to organize your writing logically. Your response needs to be well structured with clear connections between ideas. And you need to do all of that with strong vocabulary and accurate grammar. In short, task one isn't just about writing what you see, it's about selecting, analyzing, comparing, and organizing information effectively. Here we have an example of a general writing task one. And this is the situation you're in. You live in a room in college which you share with another student. However, there are many problems with this arrangement, and you find it very difficult to work. Write a letter to the accommodation officer at the college. In your letter, describe the situation, explain your problems, and why it is difficult to work, and say what kind of accommodation you would prefer. General writing task one tests your ability to write a well structured, appropriate, and grammatically accurate letter that effectively conveys your message. When I say well structured, it means you should have a clear introduction, well developed body paragraphs, and a suitable closing. You also need to choose the right tone and level of formality to match the situation and the recipient of your letter. And this is very tricky for many test takers. Of course, your vocabulary and grammatical accuracy play a big role. Moving on to writing task two. Remember, it's the same for both general and academic with slight differences in the topics. Here's an example. Children who are brought up in families that do not have large amounts of money are better prepared to deal with the problems of adult life than children brought up by wealthy parents. And the instructions say, to what extent do you agree or disagree with this opinion? What do you need to do here since you're asked to write a minimum of 250 words? Well, your job here is to write an essay. In this essay, you will develop and present arguments in response to the statement or opinion that you're given. Your ideas need to be structured in a logical manner. They need to flow, as we like to say. And all your main arguments need to be supported with reasons, examples, explanations, or evidence. You need to do all of that using a range of appropriate vocabulary combined with accurate use of grammar. All in all, there's a lot to be done in 60 minutes. And in my experience, writing section is the most challenging part for most test takers. The main reason is, I believe, that in many countries around the world, academic writing is not taught in schools. For many test takers, it's in the IELTS exam that they first hear about essay structure and paragraph structure. And the complicated part is not writing itself, it's really about organizing your thoughts, getting your head around main ideas, supporting arguments, thesis statements, and understanding how they all work together and how everything is connected. In the rest of this video, I'll talk about real life relevance of the IELTS writing section. And this is probably the most important part of the video. I encourage you to listen carefully as it may change your perspective on the exam. If you're taking IELTS General, chances are you're moving to an English-speaking country, which means you'll be dealing with government institutions, employers, and all sorts of official communication. And let's be honest, you'll be sending and receiving a lot of emails. General Training Task 1, or letter writing, prepares you for real world communication by teaching you how to structure different types of letters. Whether you're making a request, filing a complaint, or just writing personal correspondence. Most importantly, it helps you master tone and formality so you can communicate effectively and appropriately in any situation. If you're taking IELTS Academic, you're likely heading to an English-speaking university. One of the first assignments you'll be given is to do research and submit an essay. Academic Task 1 teaches you how to analyze and interpret data. This is an essential skill not just when you're conducting research, but in general. It's 21st century, everything is data driven. Task 2 helps you present your findings and argue your points in a clear, structured, and academic way. These skills will be crucial throughout your studies. But even if you're taking IELTS purely for professional reasons, just to prove your English proficiency, these writing skills will completely change the way you communicate at work. Knowing how to write professional emails, how to analyze and interpret data, how to structure paragraphs and essays can significantly impact how your colleagues and employers perceive you. And that can make a huge difference in your career. Learning how to write a strong essay, your task 2, isn't just about getting a high score in the writing section. It has so many benefits for the other sections of the exam and beyond the exam. And this is why I absolutely insist that my students learn how to write good essays. First of all, it improves your overall writing skills, obviously. But if you can structure a well-organized essay, you're going to find writing task 1 so much easier to do because the structure is basically the same. But writing skills don't just help with writing, they also boost your speaking test performance. At higher levels, band 7 and above, strong answers follow a clear structure, just like a paragraph in an essay. You start by answering the question directly or making a clear point. Then you expand on it with explanations, reasons, or examples. And this is where paragraph structure and essay writing really helps. Writing and speaking are both productive skills. The only difference is the medium. In writing, you express your ideas on paper, and in speaking, you do it verbally. The language is slightly different, but the same structure applies. If you understand that a well-developed answer is simply a spoken paragraph, it becomes much easier to expand your responses in a logical, organized way. Instead of struggling to think what to say next, you already know the structure. This not only makes your speaking sound more fluent and natural, but it also ensures that your answers are well developed, which is essential for a high band score. Of course, this also helps with test anxiety, as your brain has a framework and knows what the next step is. Here's something most people don't realize: writing essays even improves your reading skills. How? Well, when you understand how essays and paragraphs are structured, you can quickly find key information in a text. You know where the main idea is most likely to be, how supporting details are presented, and how arguments are developed. This makes reading newspaper articles, academic texts, and most importantly, IELTS reading passages much easier. Essay writing also helps in public speaking, debate, and any situation where you need to express an opinion clearly, whether in writing or in conversation. It strengthens your ability to argue a point, to present your ideas in a persuasive way, and communicate effectively in both formal and informal settings. So, by learning how to write good essays, you're not just preparing for IELTS. You're really building skills that will help you in speaking, reading, and real life situations. It's probably one of the most valuable things that you can take away from the IELTS exam.